Well, this is probably the best Harley-Davidson motorcycle battery. It says for Harley-Davidson. That's nice. 320 cold cranking amps, made in USA. It's a totally sealed battery, and it says charged and tested as of 9/6. Has 13 volts. I don't know. Very difficult to say. I got it on my trickle charger right now, but I'm not going to leave it on there that long. I'm going to pull the bike out from underneath that thing and work on it under there, because we've just had some very heavy rains. It's like, oh, what else is new, right? But with the battery that's in there right now is an Odyssey battery, and the Odyssey has actually been very good to me. It's about 6 years old. It still cranks the bike over. But one thing with the Odyssey, well, two things actually. One is more minor, but the one I think is more major is the cold cranking amps rating of the Odyssey. It's 200 cold cranking amps. This is 320. I think the Odyssey probably has some better type of construction, maybe. What's going to happen with that Odyssey battery is I'm going to install it on this diesel generator here in place of this Everstart battery that keeps going dead now. That is rated at 275 cold cranking amps, except it's, that's not something you should always go by 100%, because it's actually the construction of the battery. The Odyssey does have some really outstanding construction. I don't know what's in it exactly, but the fact that I had this battery for 6 years still starts the bike up. But I think it would start a lot faster with this battery, because when I hit the starter button, it goes, whoa, then it goes, then it starts, It actually like cranks over once, and then it stops for maybe a split second or whatever, maybe a second, and it goes. That's the way it's always been. I think the original OEM rating on that Sportster is 200 cold cranking amps. So the Odyssey's right within it, and it's a much better construction. It's non-spillable. It might actually be better construction than the Twin Power. I'm not sure. I almost got the Drag Specialties. It's virtually the same. I think it's like 310 cold cranking amps, 320. That's identical, really. But with my J&P Cycles Gold Club membership, this one was slightly cheaper. So I said I'd go for this one, Both were Drag Specialties. Has a premium battery. They have two, glass mat, non-spillable, the electrolyte is in there, but you don't fill it. And what I used to do was I used to go to Walmart and get their motorcycle batteries. On average, they used to last 6 months. And battery acid would get on things, and I was like spraying them down. I was like, God, they would never last a year. But Walmart makes, I don't want to say because it's Walmart, but because it's a conventional style battery, and they're just crap, man. They really are. Even the glass mat batteries, the ones that are like this where you don't fill them up, they're not all the same construction. They make like Twin Power, and I think Drag Specialties, and there's other ones. I think this was like 100. Well, I think it was a 113 with the discount, maybe 120 something without the discount. But if you get, there's other ones out there for like $80 that are non-spillable, glass mat battery, but they're not the same exact construction. You're actually paying more for something. Some are more heavy duty than others. I think this one and the Drag Specialties heavy duty are the best ones you can get. I like the Odyssey. I wish it would put out 300, well, at least close to 300 cold crank. I mean, if it was 275, I wouldn't care. 275, 320. It's not that much of a difference, but it's 200 cold cranking amps, and that's not really that much. On my bike, I know it's a Sportster, but it's a 1220 over, so it's an actual true 74 inch. It's not 73.3 inches. A 1200 stock 1200 Sportster is actually not 74 cubic inches. It's 73.3. This one's actually 1220 over, so it's 74. I could say it's a 74. Wow. It's got the Andrews V4 cam in it, which is like a mild performance cam, but it's got these Baisley valves and higher spring tension on it. Different RevTech springs. All that stuff causes it more and plus the 50 weight straight weight oil. I use 50 straight weight. I don't use that 20-50 crap unless it's really cold or something. That takes more to power to crank it over. And, 200 cold cranking amps is not enough for that. It's enough for an 883. Maybe it's enough for a stock 1200 Sportster. It's not enough for a freaking 1340 80 cubic inch, or 104 cubic inch, or what is it, 103, 110. It's not enough for that. So I don't know what the hell they're selling that. You need something like this. Now the other thing I like about this is, Odyssey didn't have this either. You notice the threads on the top here? You don't need those stupid square bolts that you're fiddling around with. I used to put like some tape behind a bolt and stick it in there. The nut, excuse me, just so I could put the bolt in there, start the bolt. It's got threaded bolts and nuts already on the top and on the side with the bolt and a star washer. So I clean this off with a pocket knife first. Use my handy dandy pocket knife, and I got this thing, my little Rebel thing. Love that thing. And I put dielectric grease on the connection so it doesn't corrode. Because no matter what you do, bike is exposed to weather, so you want to make sure it doesn't corrode. And here's my boo-boo, meow meow. Paws, she's got white paws and a white breast. He's the next one, hopefully to get fed. That's, there's Onyx in there, sleeping. So, anyway, let's get this battery in. Now, in the Sportster, obviously, you don't need to take the seat off to, get at the battery. But what I wanted to check was, I remember under here some years ago, I had a little surface rust starting. And I coated it up with some really good stuff here. Just wanted to double check there's no rust starting again. It looks pretty good to me, man. Well, looks like all the wires are all, everything's good to go. What I'm going to do is give it a little shot of fluid film right on the top of the frame here, because sometimes that's where you can get some rust going. And I never used fluid film on here. I just used I don't know what I used before. It was some kind of heavy duty epoxy paint or some crap, but that's an area of the bike that you're not, you don't see. So I actually saw surface rust on here one time. I was like, hell, that's why I took the seat off. I said, let me just double check this crap just to make sure. So looks good, looks good. I did that years ago. Obviously, since I did it right, it didn't rust, but I threw a little bit of that on there because, might take a million years for the freaking frame to rust through, but then again, if it starts getting a weak spot, you're going to have it fixed, So, prevention is, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. How that works. So, on here, you just got one little bolt down here on the strap. This is I don't ever use this. This is the oil, just the oil draining line. I only use that as you can actually pump it out. And it's right here, excuse me, right here. 7/16, use a deep socket. Comes right the hell off. You could see, well, you know what? It's going to be easier with the seat off anyway. It's going to be easier to see what I'm doing with the seat off anyway, so not bad. Could be a little dot of something here. I just got this fluid film shit, and it's got some uses for it. I generally like painting something with rust converting primer than truck bed lining versus using this fluid film. But since it's already painted up, might as well just put this crap on it, because if I was going to paint it, I'd have to chemically clean it and all that garbage. So, and while the seats are out, I really doused them down with some of this 303 protectant. I used to spray them down with a little bit of protectant once in a while, but I really never liked doing that much because, when you're sitting on these seats, the friction is what holds your butt in on the bike. But this stuff, once it dries, It's not an oily residue. I like using this stuff. I've just found out about this stuff, to tell you the truth. But it does work well on the motorcycle seats and controls and handles because it protects them, but the big thing is it does not make them slippery. That's the thing. It does not make them slippery. Once this stuff dries on here, it's not slippery at all. It's not so much for appearance, but this seat's like 30 years old. And, you know, since the bike was under cover all the time, you know, it really doused it on here. I don't know, maybe it'll last another 30 years. I don't feel like changing any parts, man, unless, you know, unless it's like moving parts like wheels and tires. I mean, tires and bearings and stuff like that. You know, add on freaking BS. I don't like doing that. I don't want to change parts just for the hell of it. So prevention, again, is worth a lot. The other thing is with the battery, too. When your battery's getting a little old, it can put strain on your starter. I'm surprised my starter's freaking still good, because there's a couple times I had a hard time starting the bike because of just simply because the plugs were fouled up. But if you run the starter on a lower voltage battery, it puts a lot more strain on it, and you can burn up your starter a lot easier. So that's why it's good to have a good battery and good charging system in your bike, because your starter is going to last a lot longer. And if you go from an 883 to a 1200, you know, you got to change your starter. I mean, they never tell you that in the you know, big difference in power, man. Big difference in power. Remember, because that bike originally, long time, I think within well less than 1 year, my bike, less than a year, I went from an 883, it's an 89, I went from an 883 to a 1200 with Andrews V4 cams in a year. You know, it didn't take, that was even when they were converting them. You know, not many people were converting them. Now it's like a real popular thing, you know. You get an 883 and just make it a 1200. But, yeah, you need a starter, man. Bigger battery's not going to cut it only if you go to more cubic inches. You'll need a more high torque starter plus the bigger battery. Okay, so, you know, I unbolted the strap, which is actually right through a hole right there. Right, you can barely see the hole right there above my finger. And it's a 7/16. You use like a little deep socket like this, reaches up in there, unscrew it. And this Odyssey battery, I guess it did have a good connection thing up here, because it had this plate and you had a way to screw the, you know, stuff into here, which is a lot better than I hate those ones where you have to take a little square nut behind that little thing that stands up, the post, and then try to get that nut and behind there, lined up with the bolt. I usually wind up using tape. Now, if you look at the rating on there, cold cranking amps 200. And I'll tell you what, this still is not a bad battery at all, man. It's not a cheap battery. It's a piece, okay. You know, I should double check the length on this damn thing. It should be the right one, but that's what they said. Well, it does look physically the same size, except this is the positive, and that's a negative. And what I'm going to do too on this, I'm going to actually put a big plus sign on this thing on the top or something, or that's kind of weird. I don't know why. I hope this cable reaches. Should. Guess if you turn it that way a little bit, it should reach. That's nice. I don't know why the hell it's backwards like that, but that's how it is. Okay, the terminals were on the correct side. I noticed it when I looked over here. I said, oh, there's a red wire. I'm just using a black wire for the positive too, from the battery or whatever the hell it is, from the starter motor, I think it is. So I didn't notice it. Then I noticed it, and I says, when I cleaned this off, there was a little bit of truck bed lining on here. It said positive right here, obviously. So I marked it really good on the top. The other thing is, it's a pain in the ass trying to hold the battery up and you know, line up the little bolt into, you know, with the wires and stuff, especially on a positive when you got two wires. I like using it as a jack stand underneath there. This way I can hold the battery out, just rest up there, and it's good with these batteries that don't spill, that you know, you don't have to worry about getting acid anywhere anyways, because you can turn them upside down, for crying out loud. But you know, having that jack stand there is like an extra hand to hold the battery up because you can't tighten this up when it's in the back of the tray like that. And I use the top post. I'm probably going to put a piece of rubber over this just in case, or truck, what do you call it, Gorilla Tape with a plastic tie over it, holding the Gorilla Tape in place just to make sure. I did wire brush all these with the drill down there, make sure they're really clean. So we'll hook this damn thing up. Also want to say that when I charge this battery up all the time, I don't go through there. See that little bolt right down there on the starter? What I do is I take the charger and the clamp that I got, what do you call it, Gorilla Tape around the clamp so I can open it up. But this way the clamp doesn't touch this and ground this out. So I can get the clamp on here and I put one wire there and I put one wire on the bolt. That's my ground for the the master cylinder for the rear brake. Then I drape the wire up, so if the pipes are hot, I drape it up over the air cleaner. That's how I'll keep the bike on a trickle charger without doing anything, without getting in behind that battery box and all that kind of crap. It's freaking crazy to do that, man. It's a lot easier just doing it that way. So I got a feeling this battery is going to really crank this thing over really good. I'm going to spray a little bit of what do you call it, fluid film on the top of the terminals too. So I don't think they'll corrode too easy with that stuff. I think this fluid film will probably hold up better than the dielectric grease. I'm not going to put the dielectric grease in here where it's attached, because I think with the fluid film on, it's not going to have any problem. Well, I did some Gorilla Tape wrapped around there. There's fluid film underneath there first, but then I know the Gorilla Tape's not going to stick to the fluid film, but it sticks to itself. Wrapped it around there a bunch of times and put a zip tie around there to hold the tape so it won't unravel. Of course, the ground don't matter. One of the things I was thinking is, if you're riding in the rain, all this gets wet in here, it could create a mild short, a very mild short, but it's enough to put some strain on your charging system. So I want to take that strain off of there, Anyway, so that's basically it. Just got to put it back in there. Just shove it back in here in the tray and put the top cover on with the strap, with the bolt that goes down in that hole right there. Right here. You can see it right there. And that's it. But it should have a hell of a lot. And actually, you know what? Even on a Sportster, it is easier with the seat off of it, because the seat sticks out about that far. It just gives you a little less room to work with, but you don't have to take the seat off. But like I said, I did want to check in here to see if this top of this frame was rusting, but it wasn't. But there's a little fluid film on there, a little fluid film on the battery connections, and there's a little fluid film on the freaking battery tray. Sure we get some on there, so that should really hold it up pretty good. A little bit on the inside of this thing. And this tray, this top tray, doesn't go anywhere near the terminals, so it's not going to hit nothing up there or nothing, no way. But just to make double sure, man, just to make double sure, started up instantly. It was like night and day. Here I'm thinking I had a problem with possibly, one of the wires to the coil was dirty or something, because it would take a little cranking to get it going. Instead of going rrr, and then rrr, it go boom, start right up. And I haven't started in a week, because it's been raining out like crazy, including today. We're not raining right now, cloudy as hell, but it was raining out like crazy. So what a difference. Now I don't feel like I'll get stuck somewhere, because this battery's got 320 cold cranking amps. That battery's got 200. So it's got 50% more power. And so if I'm running my lights Because what I did with this bike is a 4-speed Evo. The stator was reworked, or actually the clutch shell, excuse me, not the stator, the clutch shell with the magnets that work with the stator. They were shaved down a little bit and put in a black basket so the magnets don't fly out and hit the stator. That's one of the problems with the 4-speeds. I don't know who did it. Was it Zippers, Machine Performance maybe, or somebody around there? Machine shop. But ever since they did that, I've never had a problem. I had the starter ring gear welded to the clutch shell so it doesn't spin because it was a press fit. And they put the weights in the basket so they don't fly out, and the basket's epoxied to the clutch shell. But they shaved the weights down just a hair, so it puts out just a little less power. It's enough, but if you're running the lights in traffic, stop and go, it might be putting a little drain on the battery. But with this battery, no problem, man. No problem at all, because it's not going to be putting much of a drain on it. The other thing I'm going to do probably with it later is I'm going to get, this is probably not something I'm going to do. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to do the tires, the wheel bearings, change the wheel bearings, grease the swing arm bearings, grease the front neck fork bearings, change the fork oil, do the primary chain and the motor sprocket in the primary. And I'm going to put a 46 tooth sprocket in the rear wheel with the 23 up. I had already got the 23 up front for highway, but that's going to be as much highway gearing as you can possibly get on this Sportster. You know, that's what else you like without going really custom. It's got enough torque in its motor that those gears aren't going to matter. But what I might do later on is get a Zipper Performance trap door for the transmission. That'll totally eliminate any possibility of the clutch shell getting torqued up where the magnets hit the stator. And I'll change also to an Andrews main shaft, but that's later. That's not really that necessary because I don't think I have a problem with anything. As a matter of fact, too, I can put this out in other videos. You see right there. I'll turn the key on. You can see it better. See that? It says 13 volts resting. This is a little regulator. Usually if you see just a little bit of green, or if you got 2 orange lights, you're okay, probably right there. When you're running it, you should be like just showing a hint of green. Sometimes if I'm going slow, I'll show just the 2 orange lights. I'm right at 13 volts. Still not really draining the battery, but I'm a little nervous sometimes if I'm with this battery. But that battery is going in a generator, the diesel generator. And even though that battery in that diesel generator is maybe 2 years old, this one's about 6 years old. The one in that diesel generator says 275 cold cranking amps. It's way overrated. I think you only need 140. This says 200. I guarantee you this battery is way better than the one that's in that generator right now, because it is an Odyssey battery. You got to remember, this is a 6-year-old battery, but I don't think this thing ever cranked over that fast, even with this Odyssey. That 320 cold cranking amps, what a difference, man. Usually this bike is a pain in the ass to start if it sits a week. It started right the hell up. No problem at all. It's got a lot more juice going to the, what do you call it, to the thing here. Let's see what the hell, I'm just curious about something too. Yeah, I was curious if the tack would stop bouncing around. That's an aftermarket tack. I don't know what the hell freaking crap this is. I cleaned all the wires on it, cleaned the ground, I cleaned all the wires to the coil, the tack ground, all that crap. Like I said, it just bounces around, but at least it works. So, but it does start it cranks over like lightning quick. And the Odyssey was pretty good. I mean, shit, the Odyssey outlasted, the standard freaking lead acid batteries that you buy in the stores that maybe cost you $50. The Odyssey was maybe a little over 100, 110 or 20 or something. It outlasted. I mean, usually I only get about 6 months, maybe a year max. So here it is 6 years later. So if you said $50 times even a year, that's $300, but it's more like $450, $500 worth of those other batteries with acid spilling and changing them out. It's a pain in the ass. This damn thing is still good. It still works pretty good. It's not really working like new, but that's why it pays to buy quality, man. You buy quality, at least it's done, and you don't have to freaking mess with it anymore. So tomorrow I'll be changing out the fork oil in this thing. I'm going to put some synthetic trans fluid in it versus fork oil this time. Some good brand, Pennzoil or something, full synthetic transmission fluid. I'm beginning to, But do remember that tip about the jack stand. I remember I picked it up a while ago. You put that jack stand right here, and you can rest your battery up on there while you have it out to get the wires up in there. So it's it's a good deal, man. That's a good little tip right there too.